What's up, Lake Pro Tackle fam? Today's video, or this video, we're going to be talking about Lake Lewisville coming up, what I think. Well, number one, get you a limit out there. Number two, just talk about general fishing. Right now, the lake is getting low enough to where a lot of the submerged stumps or old trees or anything like that, a lot of the cover is being pulled up, or I get not pulled up, but the lake's going down, so there's a lot more hazards out on the lake. I definitely ran aground in a shallow bay area. I went up on a stump. Also tore my prop up on some shallow rock that I did not know was there. But that's beside the point. We're going to be talking about my top 5-6 lures, go-tos for fishing Lake Lewisville at this current point in time. I was out a lot this past weekend, caught tons of fish. I had some friends in town. They caught fish. They don't even fish, like, at all, period. These were the first largemouth that they had ever caught. Hybrid bite is still super amazing. So let's go ahead and kick it off. I like to try to mix in some moving baits. I like to try to mix in some plastics. For them, what really got it done, period, was pink worm, robo worm, 6-inch straight tail. These are just the regular ones. This color specifically is Martin's Madness, but anything in the pink variety worked very well. They were not hitting like a bold bluegill or anything that kind of looked supernatural. They only wanted to key in on kind of these crazier colors, which I thought was very interesting. I don't know why they weren't eating the more natural looking ones, but they definitely wanted a pink or a purple. So that's how we caught them. The easiest way that I found. I also did a lot of these techniques on the table here and still had a lot of success. But for simplicity purposes, they did not. They didn't throw anything else. We did actually catch a few largemouth on A-rigs, but that's not on my list of things to throw. Very technique specific and very, very live scope oriented, which these baits are not live scope oriented. So, moving on from the robo worms, I want to talk about these guys right here. And all the next couple plastics I'm talking about, I always dip the tail chartreuse in the fall. Something about those brighter colors, those really just iridescent ones. I mean, kind of like the pink or purple, it stands out a lot in the water. So my second, or I guess kind of my first slash second choice would be just a Zoom Super Fluke. Now these guys right here look like a shad, but it could really imitate anything. I don't know exactly what the bass think about it, but dragging this on a Texas rig or dragging this on like a mini Carolina rig is super good for catching fish all times of the year, but especially right now, I like the watermelon red color or a green pumpkin. There's different water clarities all throughout the lake, and I found that most water clarities, this watermelon red flake will do awesome. Just dragging this on a real light Texas rig around 1/8 of an ounce to 1/4 of an ounce is kind of where I like to throw it. I'm typically always looking for hard bottom in the fall time because that's where the bass want to feed. When they're hitting shad down to the bottom or chasing them up, they like to have that option. Instead of getting a face full of mud, they're actually able to pin their targets to the hard bottom, anywhere from literally 0 foot of water all the way out to 25 foot of water. We caught a lot of fish. So I guess number 2 would be the fluke bite. It's been super great. Next up is another plastic, and this is kind of where, this is the time of year I like to make a switch between like a Rage Craw or a Chigger Craw and kind of change it up to something like a Rage Menace or Adrenaline Craw, a Z Craw, something that has 2 twin tails, either a grub style tail or something like a, I don't even know what to call this style tail, basically just 2 big claws that usually move a lot slower. They don't push a lot. Well, they push a decent amount of water, but they're not moving very, very fast. They're not high frequency baits, something like a Rage Craw or a Speed Craw. These push a lot of water and move a lot slower in the water when you drag them. So the Adrenaline Craw is super awesome on, and you can put these on jigs if you want. I like to do them plain Jane Texas rig. I feel like my hookup to land ratio is a whole lot better. And for the high school angler that isn't very technique oriented and or doesn't know the proper technique for setting the hook on a jig or something, a Texas rig just makes this so much easier. So my 2 plastics to imitate just Craw style stuff would be a Rage Menace in the full size and also an Adrenaline Craw or something like a Z Craw, something like that. So these are great for dragging around sticks. These are great for dragging around riprap. You can drag these literally anywhere. I like moving these a little bit faster than the Then the fluke, you really got to let it sit there. It's much more of a patience bite. These you can drag pretty consistently, and they're just really looking like a bluegill on the bottom or a shad struggling on the bottom. I typically will stay with the same colorway, you know, watermelon red or whatever this color is. This is a bluegill, you know, it looks like a bluegill. I actually noticed I was getting hit a lot by bluegill when I was throwing these, which was kind of funny. I was like, oh, well, I know the bluegill are around, and, you know, I'm catching fish on it. So that's obviously what some of the bass have started transitioning to, but shad is still a very big deal this time of the year, as it will be all the way through the winter time. You know, when food gets not scarcer, but the bass don't want to move around as much, the shad are typically the ones moving around with the water temperature and the wind and all that. So shad will become more of a primary forage later in this year, towards that December time frame, January, February, and then it picks up around that bluegill by the craw bite in the spring. So moving on from there, I do want to talk about this guy right here. This is the Pretender spinnerbait. I have noticed a lot of the fish are now moving towards a little bit bigger forage. I was talking about in another video, the mini blades of glory. This is super awesome for pinpoint casting, but if you want to throw it around, it's a great option. Number one, period. It has smaller blades. If you are noticing there is a lot bigger bait around that 3 to 5 inch class, or really even like 4 to 6 inch class, the money ball is the one I would go with. It has slightly bigger blades, slightly bigger presence, which will help draw in a lot of the bites. Same principle goes for the spinnerbait here. The blades on this are a lot bigger. I like this in a 3/8 variety. I'm going to primarily focus on hard timber and or shallow cover. If you can zip this around docks, dock slips, hardwood trees that are standing, even if you find shallow cover like a roadbed or literally anything that provides cover or shade for a bass, and you just work this over their head, this is like a tried and true way to go get bit in the fall time. This color here is blue crystal. I love this one. I also love the blueback herring. Very translucent baits. I'm not throwing like straight white or straight chartreuse. I feel like I get bit a heck of a lot more off the translucent colors. So this blue crystal here, blueback herring, 3/8 ounce, double willow, one really big kicker blade on the back there, is going to be, I guess, my what are we on? 1, 2, 3, fourth pick. Moving on along to another moving bait, and the same principle that I just talked about, the color for the spinnerbait and or chatterbait. I like a spinnerbait a little more in the fall. You can work it slower, be more efficient in the area, because fish have spread out a lot towards the backs of coves, you know, secondary points, main lake points, and all that. I can work an area more thoroughly, which I think is a lot better approach than just covering a ton of water, missing a lot of fish, because a lot of it is a bite window deal and all that. So moving on, in the same principle for the colors, I don't usually throw like a straight solid sexy shad. I'll go to something like this guy, and this is the super shad. It's going to be very translucent. It's going to have some glitter in it. Looks a little pearly. Very shad profile. This is a lipless crankbait. This is one of my favorite ones. This is the Jackal TN60. When they start focusing on smaller bait later in the fall, like when that water temp starts to dip down towards the 60s, I'll pick up the TN70, which is a lot bigger. This one is only 4/9 of an ounce, so I mean basically a little over half an ounce. You can reel this with the rod tip up, the rod tip down. It doesn't really matter. Depending on how shallow you're fishing, shallow or deep you're fishing will determine that. I like to have 12 to 14 pound line on this, 12 to 15, I guess, running Seagar. But I absolutely love this guy right here. I don't recommend throwing it in and around trees unless you're pretty confident that you can work it through. This is kind of more of a good search bait. You can find little areas. If you've got some high spots around, you can throw it up on top of it. Really just depends on how this fish are setting up. And if it's a bright sunny day, which it looks like it's going to be a little post-fronty, I might not pick this up. If it's early morning, I would definitely cover a lot of water, because that early morning bite is going to be that prime time. You want to definitely cash in on the early morning. Now, last bait here that I want to talk about is the bull shad. Now, this is the original bull shad. This is going to be a resin bait, and it is going to be a 6-inch thread fin. Now, we've got a bunch of different colors. We got thread fin, we got gizzard, we got bone. The thread fin's a great one. The bone's a great one if you find some dirtier water. The thread fin will work in all water clarities, and same with gizzard. Gizzard's just a little bit darker. What this does is you're going to throw this the exact same areas that you'll work a spinnerbait. The spinnerbait's a little more weedless, so I'm not too concerned about losing that one to a snag. This is going to be any shallow cover you find. You're going to throw this and work it very, very fast. You want to key in on a reaction bite. Optionally, you can work it slower, but the way this was designed to be fished was you throw it up towards shallow cover, you burn it out, trying to make that bass react to it by instinct. You know, it sees a good sized meal. This is a 6-inch meal right here, and when that bull shad is just swimming through the water, it really keys in on their primary instincts, which is, I gotta go hit that. It's a big meal. If you don't have the right equipment for a 6-inch, we have 5-inchers, but realistically, you don't need anything super crazy for the 6-inch bull shad here. This is also the slow sink variety. If you are utilizing live scope, or you're utilizing technology or you know exactly what you're fishing, you can go to the faster sink model. This one here, especially for shallow timber, literally like anything sticking up off the bank that a fish would be attracted to, I highly recommend throwing something like this around, whether it's a mag draft, a big, you know, any other big swim bait. You can throw glide baits. I like to throw a lot faster moving glide baits, so kind of your choppy ecos, or like a chad, something like that, that moves very, very fast. You don't want a wide, super slow glide right now. As the water cools down, you'll have a time and place for that, but when it comes to moving fast, covering water, and being efficient, I highly recommend a bull shad or a chad shad, or an eco for that matter. I caught tons of fish on an eco over the past weekend, and it was a blast. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Right now, like I said, water clarity varies depending on where you're at. Water temperature also varies quite a bit. I found, I believe it was 68 early morning and late night, and around 70 during the daytime. Ran into some very inconsiderate high school anglers with their captains on the water as well on Sunday. Don't want to name any names because I don't know their names, but just want to shout them out there. Thanks for cutting me off about 20 yards. Whatever. Doesn't matter. Not my lake. But I hope this helped. Again, don't sleep on the chartreuse dye, and don't sleep on like a red dye either. The red dye and the chartreuse dye definitely help out. Don't do all of it, just the tips. But guys, I hope you enjoyed. If this video helped you in any way, definitely leave a like on it. We greatly appreciate it, and want us to do more of these. Let me know down in the comments below. And high school anglers also get 10% off their orders. So use code HSBassFishing, and you'll get that as well. So thank you so much, guys, for watching. Once again, we'll see you next time at Lake Pro Tackle. See you guys.